Hey guys, picture this. You're in Tenochtitlan, the heart of the Aztec Empire. The sun's shining, the streets are alive with music. Market stalls overflow with fresh fruit, cacao, and bright fabrics. Everywhere you walk, people are smiling at you, giving you gifts, treating you like, well, a celebrity. Feels good, right? Well, it shouldn't, because there's a catch. You're not famous for your achievements, your skills, or your good looks. You're famous because, in just a few days, you're going to be killed. Not as punishment, not as an accident, but on purpose. You've been honored with the role of an Aztec sacrifice victim. And trust me, this is one role you can't turn down, no matter how politely you ask. Now, in the Aztec world, this isn't seen as cruelty. It's a cosmic necessity. They believed the gods worked tirelessly to keep the sun rising, the seasons turning, and the rain falling, and the payment for that divine service, human hearts and human blood. From the moment you're chosen, your life flips upside down. Suddenly, you're wearing fine clothes, your skin painted with sacred colors, and you're fed the best food the city can offer. People bow as you pass. The high priests treat you with respect. But deep down, you know this isn't kindness. It's a countdown. Every time you walk through the bustling city, your eyes drift up to that towering temple in the distance, its stone steps stretching toward the sky. You know that's where your journey ends. And here's the thing for the Aztecs. This isn't a tragedy. This is the ultimate honor. You're not just dying, you're helping keep the entire universe alive. Still, as the ceremonial drums get louder each day, you can't help but wonder, is glory supposed to feel this terrifying? So, let's rewind. Before you're standing at the base of the great temple in Tenochtitlan, before the drums and the chanting and the feathers in your hair, how did you even end up here? The Aztec Empire didn't pick just anyone at random to be a sacrifice victim. It wasn't like some unlucky lottery where your name got pulled out of a clay jar and, boom, you're done. No, the process was far more deliberate, steeped in religion, ritual, and politics. And, depending on the festival, the selection could be almost as fascinating and terrifying as the sacrifice itself. 1. The festivals and the calendar. The Aztecs had a highly complex calendar system with 18 months of 20 days each, plus 5 unlucky days at the end of the year. Almost every month had its own festival, and many of these involved human sacrifice. Some festivals honored agricultural gods, some celebrated war victories, and some were for the mighty sun god Huitzilopochtli. For each festival, the priests would decide what kind of sacrifice the gods demanded: male, female, young, old, prisoner, or volunteer. Yes, volunteers did exist, though we'll get to that twist later. Point 2. Prisoners of war, the most common source of sacrifice victims. Prisoners taken in battle. The Aztecs didn't fight wars just to conquer land. They fought what were called flower wars. These were staged battles between the Aztecs and their rivals, not to annihilate the enemy, but to capture live, healthy warriors. Why? Because dead enemies weren't useful to the gods. They needed fresh, beating hearts. Captured warriors were often the strongest, bravest, and most skilled fighters from their own armies, making the offering even more worthy in Aztec eyes. Imagine being a soldier, fighting with all your might, and the better you fight, the more likely you are to end up on the altar. 3. The perfect living god for some ceremonies. The victim wasn't a random prisoner, but a carefully chosen individual, who would live for months as the earthly embodiment of a god. This was especially true for festivals like Toxcatl, honoring the god Tezcatlipoca. The priests would search for a man who was physically flawless, no scars, no broken teeth, no deformities, and ideally handsome. Once chosen, he was dressed in luxurious clothes, given jewelry, and treated with the utmost respect. For an entire year, he was the god on earth. People bowed to him, children touched his robe for blessings, and he ate the finest food. But he always knew when the festival came, he'd be sacrificed in a grand ceremony, his heart offered to the heavens. 4. Women and children. Not all sacrifices were adult warriors. For agricultural festivals, especially those honoring rain and fertility gods like Tlaloc, the victims were often children. This sounds especially cruel, and it was, but in the Aztec worldview, the tears of these children were sacred, believed to bring rain for crops. Female victims were chosen for goddesses like Quetzalcoatl, love and beauty, or Coatlicue, earth and fertility. Sometimes they were dressed in ceremonial costumes to become the goddess before being offered. 5. Slaves as offering slavery. In the Aztec world was different from what most people think. It wasn't always permanent, and people could sell themselves into slavery to pay debts. But during certain festivals, wealthy citizens could purchase a slave, specifically to offer as a sacrifice. In these cases, the slave might live well for a short period, even given gifts before the fateful day. It was seen as an act of devotion and status for the person making the offering. 6. The rare volunteer. Surprisingly, there are records of people volunteering to be sacrificed, often for religious reasons or out of a belief that they would live forever in the afterlife with the gods. For them, dying in this way wasn't just an ending, it was a promotion to divine service. 7. The role of the priests. At the heart of all this selection was the priesthood. These weren't just men in robes chanting prayers, they were the keepers of the cosmic balance. The Aztecs believed the sun, moon, and earth could literally stop functioning if the right sacrifices weren't made at the right times. Priests studied omens, read the stars, and consulted the sacred calendar to decide exactly who and how many victims were needed. They also ensured that victims were kept in peak physical condition before the ceremony. No injuries, nothing to offend the gods. 8. Life between selection and sacrifice. Once chosen, your life could change dramatically. If you were a prisoner of war, you might be kept in a cell or cage, but you'd still be fed well. No point starving the god's meal. After all, if you were a god's impersonator, you'd be paraded round the city, attending banquets and celebrations in your honor. In both cases, you'd be surrounded by an inescapable knowledge. Every sunrise brought you closer to the temple steps. In short, the path to becoming an Aztec sacrifice victim wasn't random. It was a complex intersection of religion, politics, warfare, and cosmic duty. Whether you were a captured warrior, a flawless god impersonator, a child, or even a willing volunteer, your fate was tied to the rhythms of the Aztec calendar and the ever-hungry needs of their gods. And as you stood on those steps, looking up toward the altar and the endless blue sky above, you weren't just one person facing death. You were, in their eyes, the heartbeat of the universe, about to be given back to the heavens. If you want, I can also make the final days section next, a cinematic, day-by-day lead-up, from selection to sacrifice, so the viewer really feels the tension. That would make the next part of your script even more gripping. Hey guys, picture this. You're just an ordinary man, maybe a young farmer from a quiet village, maybe a warrior who's seen a few battles. Your day is going normally, the smell of maize cooking in the distance, the chatter of your neighbors, until suddenly, Aztec soldiers and priests arrive. At first, you think you're being arrested. Your heart starts pounding. Did you offend someone? Did you break a law? But then something strange happens. Your old clothes are taken away, not stored, not washed, burned. The message is clear. Your old life is gone. The priests step forward, carrying bowls of sacred pigments. If you've been chosen to represent Tezcatlipoca, the paint is a deep, glistening black that stains your skin like polished obsidian. If you're chosen for Huitzilopochtli, god of the sun and war, your skin is brushed in vibrant turquoise, the color of the heavens. The air is thick with the scent of copal incense as they work, chanting prayers in a low, steady rhythm. They place a crown of rare quetzal feathers on your head, each feather shimmering emerald green in the sunlight, each one worth more than its weight in gold. Around your shoulders, they drape a cotton mantle so soft it almost slips from your grasp. And this isn't just any cotton. The fabric is woven so finely that commoners are forbidden to own it by law. Your tunic isn't plain, it's embroidered, with sacred symbols, jaguar spots for strength and dominance, eagle feathers for courage, swirling spirals for the eternal cycle of creation and destruction. Each stitch is done by skilled hands, probably the best artisans in the empire, because in the eyes of the people, you are the god they serve. On your ears, large jade discs that catch the sunlight. Around your neck, a heavy turquoise and gold necklace that rests cool against your skin. On your wrists, gleaming bracelets, each one clicking softly when you move. And as you walk, the crowd's eyes follow you, a mix of awe, devotion, and fear. A living goad in Aztec belief. You're not just dressing as the god, you are the god, temporarily inhabiting human flesh. The way you move, the way you speak, even the way you stand is treated as sacred. Children stare in silence, women bow their heads, and warriors salute you. Because of that, you're given privileges so rare that even the emperor doesn't always enjoy them. No one dares to speak harshly to you. No one dares touch you unless it's part of a ritual. Even the highest nobles step aside when you pass. Dining with the elite after your transformation. The next change comes at mealtime. You're no longer eating with common folk. You're invited into the royal palace itself, not once, but regularly. You sit at the same table as the emperor, high priests, and decorated generals. Servants approach with golden cups of zocolatl, a thick chocolate drink spiced with vanilla, honey, and just enough chili to warm your throat. This drink is forbidden to the lower classes. It's a luxury reserved for the most powerful. Your meals are elaborate feasts. Roasted turkey, seasoned with fragrant herbs and wrapped in maize leaves. Fresh fish brought from distant coastal waters, carried quickly so it reaches you still smelling of the sea. Tamales stuffed with chili and squash blossoms, wrapped in fragrant leaves. Warm maize tortillas served straight from the griddle. Puffed and soft exotic fruits. Guava, prickly pear, custard apple, their sweetness filling the air. Every bite is perfect. There is no tough meat, no stale bread, no bruised fruit. In the eyes of the priests, you must remain in peak condition for the gods. Your health is as much a part of the ritual as the ceremony itself. Public parades every few days. You are led through the heart of Tenochtitlan in a grand public procession. Drums pound in deep, steady rhythms that echo in your chest. Conch shells blare a haunting melody over the roar of the crowd. Dancers in bright feathered costumes spin and leap ahead of you, their shadows flashing against the sunlit streets. The scent of marigolds drifts on the air as petals are thrown at your feet. People gather in dense crowds to watch you pass. Some press their hands together in prayer. Others stretch out their arms, desperate to brush their fingertips against your garments, believing that even the faintest contact will bring them blessings. Children stare wide-eyed, too overwhelmed to speak. If you were once a captured warrior, the irony is sharp. The same people who cheered your capture now bow in reverence as you walk by. For them, you are no longer a defeated man. You are the God's own vessel, honored and untouchable. The strange double life. The days pass in a strange mix of joy and tension. On the surface, your life is filled with beauty, privilege, and respect. You have fine clothes, rich food, and public admiration. But somewhere deep inside, you can't forget the truth. This is not a reward. It's preparation. You are being fattened like an offering, polished like a jewel, perfected for the final moment when the god will take you back. As the weeks pass, your role as the living embodiment of the god grows more intense. What began as lavish meals and fine clothing becomes something more demanding, more ritualistic. You're not just being pampered anymore. You're being molded into the perfect offering. Sacred restrictions. The priests begin to place limits on your life. Some are small. No coarse language. No sudden outbursts of anger. No sitting in the dirt like a common man. Others are more severe. You're no longer allowed to wander freely without priestly escorts. You must bathe daily in fragrant herbal water, scented with flowers and sacred oils. You're forbidden from lifting heavy objects or engaging in manual labor. Your hair must be combed and oiled each morning by attendants. Your fingernails are trimmed with care, your skin kept smooth and clean. The idea is simple. When the god takes you back, you must be in the finest condition, as beautiful, strong, and pure as possible. Food remains plentiful, but now it's carefully monitored. You're fed just enough to keep you healthy and energetic, but never so much that you grow sluggish. Special tonics are prepared from cacao honey and medicinal herbs to keep your blood strong, because, for the priests, your blood is the very heart of the offering. Ritual duties. Your days fill with ceremonial appearances. You visit temples dedicated to other gods, offering prayers in the name of the deity you represent. You take part in small processions, carry symbolic items like obsidian blades or golden staffs, and sometimes perform ritual dances. In each event, you must act with dignity, not as yourself, but as the god. You can't laugh too freely, you can't slouch, and you can't show fear. Children are brought before you for blessings. Merchants kneel and ask for prosperity. Farmers beg for rain. In their eyes, you are the bridge between the human world and the divine. The festival approaches. When the final month begins, the city's energy changes. Tenochtitlan bursts into color. Markets overflow with flowers. Musicians rehearse their most powerful rhythms, and artisans work day and night to finish the costumes and decorations for the great Festival. The temple steps are scrubbed until they gleam in the sunlight. Altars are adorned with garlands of bright orange marigolds and fragrant copal incense. The air is thick with anticipation. Everyone knows the sacrifice is coming, and while outsiders might imagine grief or pity, the mood is closer to excitement, even celebration. For the priests, the sacrifice ensures the survival of the world. For the people, it's the moment when the god truly shows favor to the city. For you, it's a date written in stone. The last procession, a few days before the ceremony. You take part in one of the grandest events of the year, the final parade through Tenochtitlan. You wear your most elaborate costume yet, a headdress taller than your own height, shimmering with layers of quetzal and macaw feathers, a mantle so heavy with gold discs that it pulls on your shoulders, and sandals decorated with tiny turquoise beads. The streets are packed. Drums boom like the heartbeat of the earth. Shell trumpets wail. Flutes weave their haunting notes through. The air dancers whirl around you, their painted faces fierce in the sunlight. As you pass, people throw flowers at your feet, chant your god's name, and wave incense burners so the air around you is a swirling cloud of sweet smoke. You walk slowly, not because you're tired, but because this is your moment. For a brief time, you truly are what they believe, a being above mortal fear, a figure of beauty and power. The final night when the parade ends, you're taken to a quiet, guarded chamber within the temple complex. The city outside is alive with music and feasting, but here, the air is calm. Priests bathe you one last time in sacred water, washing away any impurity. Your hair is combed, your skin rubbed with fragrant oil, your nails trimmed to perfection. You're given a final meal, not too heavy, not too light. Turkey seasoned with precious spices, sweet tamales wrapped in fresh maize leaves, a cup of warm spiced cacao. It's delicious, but you taste it differently now. Every bite feels like a goodbye. Afterward, the priests bring out the costume you'll wear to the altar, the purest version of your god's image. The colors are brighter, the embroidery finer, the symbols sharper than anything you've worn before. They place it beside you while you rest, so you can see it. Some victims choose to sleep, finding comfort in the soft blankets provided. Others stay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint drums outside. Maybe you think of home, of your family, of the life you had before. Maybe you wonder if the gods truly see you, if they understand the beating heart they will soon receive. The priests check on you throughout the night, offering quiet prayers, ensuring you're calm. They are not cruel. In their eyes, this is the highest honor a human can achieve. And when dawn's first light touches the temple stones, they will come for you, not as a prisoner, but as the living God you have been for these precious final days. The dawn you've been waiting for and dreading arrives, with a chill in the air. Even though the sun will soon rise hot and bright over Tenochtitlan, somewhere beyond your chamber walls, the city is already awake. Drums throb in slow, deliberate beats. It's not the frantic pace of a festival dance. This rhythm is heavier, more solemn, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The final painting before you even step outside, the priests arrive to prepare you. Their faces are calm, their voices low, their movements deliberate. You are led to a space filled with the scent of copal incense, its bluish smoke curling toward the open sky. They strip away the fine garments you wore the night before, bathing you again in cool water infused with flowers and herbs. The chill makes you shiver, but no one rushes. Every motion is part of the ritual. Then comes the painting. A priest dips a flat brush into a thick black pigment made from ground charcoal mixed with resin, tracing long deliberate lines across your face, from your hairline to your jaw, over your eyelids, down the sides of your cheeks. Another uses bright red made from crushed cochineal insects, painting the center of your chest, the tops of your shoulders, and the bridge of your nose. These colors are not decorative. Each one speaks to the god you represent, to the cosmic forces this sacrifice is meant to balance. Black for the night sky, for mystery and the underworld. Red for the life force, for the rising sun, for blood itself. Your arms and legs are dusted with fine yellow ochre powder. Small white dots, symbols of stars, are painted across your forehead and temples. By the time they are done, you are no longer dressed as the god, you look like the god. Dressing for the procession, only then are your final garments brought forward. A cloak of the softest cotton, dyed with natural pigments, so vivid they almost glow in the dim light. The patterns are ancient, geometric shapes that tell the god's story, his victories, his domains, his power. Around your neck, they place a necklace heavy with gold and jade beads. A headdress of quetzal feathers arcs over your head, catching the light whenever you move. Sandals with turquoise inlays are strapped to your feet. The straps knotted in intricate patterns. Every piece is carefully adjusted. Nothing is rushed. Every thread, every bead, every feather is part of the offering. The gathering below while you are being prepared. The plaza outside has filled with thousands of people. Farmers from the chinampas, merchants from the markets, warriors in feathered helmets, all gathered to witness the moment. Children sit on their parents' shoulders to see over the crowd. Flower petals carpet the paths. The musicians are in position, drummers, flute players, shell trumpet blowers. The air vibrates with sound, the deep, resonant thump of the huetl drums, the piercing call of the conch shells, the shrill, reedy wail of bone flutes. Priests chant in long winding phrases, their words rising and falling like waves. The procession begins when the signal is given. You step into the light. The crowd reacts instantly, a murmur, a gasp, then a swelling chorus of chants calling the god's name. Flowers are thrown into the air. Incense smoke billows upward, catching the sunlight in golden shafts. 4 priests walk ahead of you, scattering flower petals and burning incense in small clay bowls. 2 more walk behind, carrying sacred objects, obsidian blades wrapped in cotton, vessels of amaranth dough shaped like human figures, symbols of the gods, gifts to the world. You walk at the center, your pace measured and steady. The headdress sways with each step, feathers whispering in the breeze. You keep your head high. You do not smile, but you do not show fear. You are the god, and the god does not hesitate. The crowd parts as you move through the plaza. Warriors in jaguar and eagle costumes pound their chests. Dancers sway in slow, deliberate movements, their painted faces locked in expressions of reverence. The approach to the temple. The great temple rises ahead of you, its twin staircases gleaming in the sunlight. The 2 shrines at the top, one for Huitzilopochtli, god of the sun and war, the other for Tlaloc, god of rain and fertility, are decorated with fresh garlands and banners that flutter in the wind. From below, the steps look impossibly steep. The crowd fills the plaza at the base, their voices growing louder as you approach. You can feel the vibration of the drums in your chest, matching your heartbeat. The priests pause at the foot of the stairs. They offer prayers in a language older than the city itself. You feel the heat of the sun on your painted skin, the weight of the gold and feathers, the weight of thousands of eyes fixed on you. Then the climb begins. The climb. 2 priests walk beside you, one on each side, guiding you upward. The steps are tall and narrow, each one demanding careful placement of your feet. The crowd below watches in absolute silence now. No cheers, no drums, only the sound of your sandals brushing the stone. Halfway up, you pause briefly, both to catch your breath and to turn toward the people. This is part of the ritual, to let them see you one last time before the god takes you. From here, the city spreads out in all directions, canals gleaming in the sun, causeways stretching toward the distant mountains. Then you continue. The air grows thinner as you climb, the wind stronger. You can smell the copal incense burning at the top. The stone beneath your feet is warm from the morning sun. The platform. At last, you step onto the wide platform before the shrine. Here, the high priest waits, wearing an even grander headdress and a cloak covered in shimmering shell beads. Behind him, other priests stand ready, their faces painted in patterns that mark their sacred rank. The altar is set, a great stone slab, polished and gleaming, surrounded by offerings of food, flowers, and precious stones. Bowls of water and maize sit nearby, along with the sacred obsidian knife that will end your life. From up here, you can see everything, the plaza packed with people, the glittering waters of Lake Texcoco, the snow-capped mountains in the distance. The city is alive, radiant, magnificent, and for a moment, it's yours. The high priest raises his arms, and the crowd erupts in a single, unified cheer. Drums thunder again, faster now, building to the moment everyone knows is coming. The wind catches your feathers. The sun beats down. The god waits. The drums no longer simply beat, they roar, filling the air so completely that even your own thoughts are drowned out. Below, thousands stand shoulder to shoulder, their faces turned upward toward you. their mouths open in chants that blend into one unbroken wave of sound. The scent of copal is thick, almost choking, mingling with the faint metallic thames of blood from earlier offerings. You are positioned at the center of the temple platform. The high priest steps forward, his robe of jaguar skin rippling in the breeze, the quetzal feathers of his headdress trembling with each step. He raises his hands toward the sun, palms open, and the crowd falls silent in a single instant, as though the world itself has drawn in its breath. The silence is profound. You can hear the wind through the feathers of your headdress, the faint creak of the altar's wooden frame, the call of a lone bird somewhere far above. The high priest begins to speak. His words are ancient, passed down through countless generations, and though you cannot understand each phrase, you know their meaning. He is telling the god why you are here. He is recounting the year's harvests, the battles fought, the rains that came and those that didn't. He is naming the needs of the people: more sun, more rain, more victory, more life. You are not mentioned by your given name. You are addressed only as the god, because at this moment, that is what you are. The binding two attendants step forward, carrying thick cotton cords. They take your hands gently, almost reverently, and guide you toward the altar stone. The surface is cool under your fingertips, polished smooth by centuries of sacrifices before you. You lie back, the sky filling your vision. An endless blue dome above. One priest takes his position at your head, another at your feet, two more at either side. They secure the cords around your wrists and ankles, tying you firmly to the stone. It is not a cruel binding. It is ceremonial, deliberate, necessary. The knots are tied in patterns representing the cardinal directions, the four parts of the universe. You can feel the stone solidity beneath you, the warmth of the sun soaking into your skin, the vibration of the drums picking up speed again. The moment before the high priest steps to your left, holding something wrapped in white cotton. He unwraps it slowly, revealing the obsidian knife, its blade so black it swallows the light, so sharp it could split a hair. Its edges shimmer faintly, not with reflected light, but with something older, deeper. The crowd begins a low, rhythmic chant, the god's name over and over, building in speed and intensity. Your heartbeat matches the drums now. You taste salt, on your lips, not from tears, but from the sweat of the climb, the heat of the day. The high priest lifts the knife toward the sun, letting its edge catch the light for all to see. He calls upon the god, asking for acceptance, asking for balance to be restored. The wind grows stronger. The feathers above your head rustle like leaves in a storm. Somewhere deep inside, fear stirs, but it is distant, muted, as though it belongs to someone else. You have gone beyond it. The chant reaches its peak. The drums are no longer separate beats. They are a constant, rolling thunder. The high priest's shadow falls across your chest. His left hand presses firmly below your collarbone, pinning you against the stone. The knife flashes. There is a sharp, breathtaking pain as the blade pierces your chest, sliding between your ribs with unerring precision. The shock makes you inhale sharply, but the breath never finishes. The pain is too sudden, too consuming. The world narrows to the sensation of stone beneath you, the press of hands holding you still, the hot rush of blood. The priest's movements are swift and practiced. In a matter of seconds, his hand disappears into the wound, and when it emerges, it holds your heart, still beating, pulsing in the sunlight. The crowd erupts. Some shout the god's name, others raise their arms toward the sun, others simply weep. The high priest lifts the heart high above his head. Blood runs down his arm, dark and thick. He turns toward the shrine and offers the heart to the idol of the god, placing it in a golden bowl where steam rises as it touches smoldering incense. Your vision begins to fade at the edges, the sky growing dim, the voices below becoming muffled, distant. Yet strangely, there is no panic now, only a strange calm, a sense that you have stepped into the role you were meant to play all along. The heart, still warm in the high priest's hand, is placed reverently into the golden bowl before the idol. Copal smoke curls around it, mingling with the steam of fresh blood. The priest murmurs a final invocation, his voice low and steady, and the crowd falls quiet again. Thousands of people listening to words meant for the gods alone. The bowl is lifted and set into a small recess, at the feet of the idol, as if feeding the deity itself. The belief is that your life force tonali will travel from your heart into the divine realm, ensuring the sun's continued journey across the sky. Without it, the world would falter. The offering of blood, your body remains bound to the altar, chest open to the air. A second priest steps forward with a decorated gourd vessel, scooping some of the blood that has pooled beside you. He carries it to the edge of the platform and tilts it, letting the blood spill down the temple's steep steps in a thin, deliberate stream. From below, the people cheer, reaching toward the red trail as if it were a blessing. Children and elders alike press forward, touching the stone where it flows, marking their foreheads with crimson streaks. This is not horror to them, it is renewal. The ritual burning meanwhile. Attendants lift the golden bowl containing your heart and carry it to a small stone brazier beside the idol. There, they let it fall directly into the coals. The flames catch quickly, licking around the organ as the air fills with a thick, rich scent, a combination of burning flesh and incense that has marked every great festival for centuries. The rising smoke is said to carry your essence skyward, directly into the realm of the gods. In the minds of the faithful, you are now both gone and eternal. The display body, still bound, is untied slowly and carefully. There is no roughness. The priests treat it as a sacred object. For strong attendants lift you and carry you to the edge of the platform so that the people below can see you clearly. The crowd roars again, some shouting thanks, others crying openly. You are shown to each of the 4 directions, east, south, west, and north, symbolically sharing your sacrifice with the entire world. Once the display is complete, your body is carried down the temple steps in a slow, deliberate procession. The drums change rhythm now, becoming softer, more measured, not the battle beat of the climb, but the heartbeat of a world restored. The descent as your body moves through the crowd, people reach out to touch the hem of the cloth it is wrapped in. Some whisper prayers, some simply stand in silence. Your family, if they are present, would be treated with respect and offered gifts, for they have given the greatest possible offering. The procession winds through the streets, back toward the ceremonial grounds. Along the way, flower petals are scattered over the body, bright reds and yellows standing out against the white shroud. The final rite, depending on the festival and the god being honored. The final fate of the body varies. In many ceremonies dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, the war god, parts of the body might be ceremonially prepared and consumed by the priests in what they saw as a sacred communion, not an act of brutality, but of unity with the divine. In other cases, the body would be buried with honor or left in a sacred place to return to the earth naturally. Either way, the treatment is not one of neglect. It is careful, deliberate, steeped in ritual. The people believe your spirit now resides in the sun's warmth, in the rain's life-giving fall, in the growth of the maize fields. To them, you have become part of the great cycle. The aftermaths, the sun begins to sink toward the horizon. The temple steps are washed, though the stone never truly loses its stains. The drums slow to a final deep roll, and the city exhales. For now, the gods are satisfied. The harvest will come, the rivers will flow, and life will continue because of you. Somewhere in the crowd, children will hear your story for the first time tonight, told with reverence around cooking fires. Your name, if it is spoken at all, will be spoken with pride. You will be remembered not as a victim, but as a savior. And in the hearts of those who watched, the image will remain. The climb, the binding, the knife, the heart lifted toward the sky. For the Aztecs, this is not an ending. This is a promise renewed. The great drums have fallen silent. The air over Tenochtitlan feels strangely still after hours of pounding rhythm and chanting. The last echoes of the ceremony fade into the warm afternoon air, and the plaza below the temple begins to shift from frenzied celebration to a slower, reverent hum. The sacrifice is done. The gods, for now, are satisfied. But the story of the sacrifice does not end at the altar. In fact, for the Aztecs, this is the moment when your journey truly begins, both for the body you leave behind and for the spirit that has departed it. The sacred removal once the heart has been burned and the offering completed. Attendants approach your body with great care. It is not treated like an object, nor discarded. The priests believe the vessel, your body, is still a sacred thing, imbued with the essence of what you have just given. 4 men lift you onto a wooden litter draped with white cotton cloth. Flower petals, often marigolds or bright red blooms, are scattered over your chest. The white shroud will quickly stain where blood has soaked through, but that is not seen as a blemish. It is a badge of divine contact. Descent through the city. The procession down the temple's steep stairs is slow, steady, and symbolic. Every step echoes with ritual meaning, descending from the divine heights back to the mortal plane. Below, the crowd presses forward, eager to see you one last time. Hands reach out to touch the hem of the shroud or brush fingertips against the litter poles. The belief is that this contact passes a fragment of your sacrifice's power onto them, protection, strength, or blessings for their crops. Children are lifted onto shoulders so they can glimpse the one who fed the sun. That day, some point with awe, others watch with wide-eyed silence. Distribution of the body. What happens next depends on the festival, the deity honored, and the customs of the specific temple. For sacrifices to Huitzilopochtli, the fierce sun and war god, the body might be ceremonially divided. Select parts, such as the thighs, would be cooked with maize and offered to high-ranking warriors or priests in what was considered a holy communion. This act, shocking to modern eyes, was not an act of cruelty or disrespect. It was believed that by consuming a small part of the sacrificed body, the living could take in the divine energy granted by the gods through the victim's death. To the Aztecs, it was the highest possible honor to share in the power of the offering. For sacrifices to Tlaloc, the rain god, the body might be buried whole in the temple grounds or near waterways, ensuring that the spirit would dwell in the realm of rain and clouds. In other cases, the body might be buried in ceremonial soil enriched with offerings, obsidian blades, cacao beans, feathers, each item symbolic of gifts for the spirit in its next existence. Return to the elements. Whatever the immediate treatment, the goal was always the same: to return the body to the cosmic cycle. Flesh would feed the earth, bones would eventually turn to dust, and from that dust would grow maize, flowers, and medicinal plants. The Aztecs did not see this as a loss, it was a transformation. You had given your heart to the gods, but the rest of you would continue working for the world, nourishing it in another form. The spirit's journey, the body's fate, was important, but even more sacred was the spirit's journey. The Aztecs believed that death was not the end, but a passage into a new realm. For warriors who died in battle, and for sacrifice victims chosen in the service of the gods, the destination was the same: the house of the sun, Tunasiwakan. There, your spirit would rise with the dawn and accompany the sun on its journey across the sky. For the first 4 years, you would fight beside the sun, defending it from the forces that sought to plunge the world into darkness. Each day, you would travel across the heavens, basking in golden light, and each night, you would descend into the underworld to prepare for the next battle at dawn. After those 4 years, your spirit would transform into a hummingbird or a butterfly, bright, quick, and forever free, sipping nectar from flowers that bloomed under the same sun you once helped keep alive. Family and community honor back in Tenochtitlan. Your family, if you had one, would be treated with respect, even reverence. They might receive gifts of food, textiles, or precious goods from the temple, or from other citizens who wished to honor the sacrifice. In some cases, a feast would be held in your name. The purpose was not mourning as we think of it today, but celebration, a recognition that you had fulfilled the highest duty a human could perform. For weeks, your name and your role in the festival would be spoken in the markets, in the schools, for young warriors, and in the quiet courtyards of family homes. Cultural memory. Over time, your individual name might fade from memory, but your story, the image of the chosen one climbing the temple, the heart raised to the sky, would be woven into the cultural memory. Children would hear of you in the same breath as legendary warriors and ancient heroes. You would be remembered not as a victim, but as one who kept the sun burning, the rains falling, and life continuing. The stains on the stone, even as the years passed, the temple steps where your blood had flowed, would remain faintly marked. No matter how often the stones were washed, the stains never completely vanished. For the Aztecs, this was not something to hide. It was a permanent reminder of the sacrifices that sustained their world. On festival days, priests and citizens would look at those marks and silently acknowledge the people who had given everything for the survival of the empire. The spiritual balance to the Aztec worldview. Every life given in sacrifice tipped the balance in favor of the living. Without such offerings, they believed the gods might weaken, the sun might falter, and chaos would descend. Your death was not meaningless. It was part of the grand economy of existence, where human energy fueled the machinery of the cosmos. The body was the physical payment, and the spirit was the eternal servant of the divine order. Legacy long after your bones had returned to the earth. Your spirit, in the form of a bright hummingbird, might dart through the gardens of Tenochtitlan. People would pause to watch you hover over a bloom, perhaps not knowing exactly who you were, but sensing something otherworldly in your presence. The children would point and say, "Look, a messenger from the sun," and the elders would smile, remembering the stories. For the Aztecs, death in sacrifice was not the erasure of the self, it was the transformation into something far greater, woven forever into the life of the world. When we try to understand the Aztec practice of human sacrifice, it's tempting to see it through our own moral lens, modern, often Western, shaped by centuries of different religious and philosophical ideas. But to truly step into the Aztec world, we need to set aside those assumptions and see the universe the way they did. Only then can we understand why thousands of people, priests, warriors, families, even the victims themselves, believed that sacrifice was not just necessary, but sacred. The universe, as a fragile machine in the Aztec worldview, the cosmos was not a stable, self-sustaining thing. It was more like a giant engine that required constant fuel. The fuel wasn't coal, oil, or electricity, it was life itself, and more specifically, blood. Why blood? Because blood carried Tenali, the vital heat, the divine energy that kept both people and gods alive. Without a steady supply of this energy, the machinery of the universe would grind to a halt. The sun would stop rising, the rains would stop falling, the earth would dry up, and everything from maize crops to the beating of hearts would cease. It wasn't superstition to them, it was cosmic maintenance, the five suns myth. The precedent for sacrifice. The roots of this belief lay deep in Aztec mythology. They told of 5 suns, 5 ages of the world. The first 4 had all ended in catastrophe. Jaguars devoured the people, hurricanes destroyed the land, fire from the sky scorched the earth, and floods swallowed everything. Now, in the age of the 5th sun, the present age for the Aztecs, the gods had decided that the sun needed constant nourishment to survive, and they had set the terms. This sun would live only as long as humans kept offering blood to it. Sacrifice wasn't cruelty, it was cooperation. The gods had bled for humans at the dawn of creation, and now humans were simply repaying that debt. The sacred debt. Nextlahulit Aztecs even had a word for this debt. Nextlahuli, the payment of what is owed. From the moment you were born, you were in debt to the gods. They had shaped the world, placed the maize in the fields, and given you breath in your lungs. Every harvest you ate, every sip of water you drank, was on credit. Eventually, the bill would come due. This is why sacrifices were not always prisoners of war or unwilling victims. In some cases, individuals volunteered. To be chosen was to have your debt called in directly by the divine, and to pay it was the ultimate honor. Gods who demanded blood while the entire pantheon valued sacrifice. Certain gods were especially linked to it. Huitzilopochtli, the sun and war god, who needed the blood of warriors to keep the sun strong in its daily battle against darkness. Tlaloc, the rain god, who sometimes required the tears of children, believing they would bring rains for the crops. Zyptotec, the god of spring and renewal, associated with flayed skin as a symbol of the earth, shedding its old growth for new life. Tezcatlipoca, the smoking mirror god, who represented fate, change, and the constant balance between order and chaos. Each god's festival had its own rituals, its own symbolism, and its own expectations for sacrifice. Life and death as a cycle for the Aztecs. Death was not an ending, but a transformation. When someone died, whether in battle, by disease, or as a sacrifice, their tonali returned to the cosmic cycle. If you died in sacrifice, or in war, you were especially blessed. Your spirit didn't just drift into the underworld like most peoples. Instead, it went to the house of the sun Tenashukan, to serve alongside the sun for 4 years, before becoming a hummingbird or butterfly. In other words, you became part of the living beauty of the world. So when a sacrifice occurred, the people didn't see it as snuffing out a life. They saw it as redirecting that life's energy to both the gods and the ongoing cycle of nature. Public spectacle. Private faith sacrifices were not hidden in dim temples or secret chambers. They were public, spectacular, and loud. The reason was twofold. Religious duty. Every citizen had a stake in the ceremony's success. Witnessing it reaffirmed their role in the cosmic bargain. Political power. The sheer scale of the events reminded allies and rivals alike that the Aztec Empire was strong, organized, and favored by the gods. But beneath the pageantry, there was deep personal faith. People prayed during sacrifices, not for the victim's safety, that was already decided, but for the gods to be pleased, and for the sun to rise again tomorrow. Sacrifice as warfare's extension. The Aztecs saw warfare and sacrifice as two halves of the same whole. Wars were often fought not to kill enemies on the battlefield, but to capture them alive. These flower wars, exioiatl, were essentially live harvests of human energy for the gods. Warriors were trained from childhood to see capturing a foe for sacrifice as the highest act of valor. To take a life in battle was honorable, but to deliver that life to the temple steps was divine service. The priests' sacred role. Aztec priests were not executioners. They were cosmic technicians, trained to channel divine forces. They learned chants, purification rituals, and the precise handling of the obsidian blades used for heart removal. Before a sacrifice, priests would undergo days of fasting, bloodletting, and prayer to ensure they were pure enough to act as intermediaries between the human and divine realms. They believed any mistake, physical or spiritual, could offend the gods and disrupt the balance. The people's perspective from a modern point of view. It's hard to imagine the victims' families being anything but devastated. But in Aztec culture, many saw it as a cause for pride. If your son was taken for sacrifice, it meant your family had given a gift to the gods. If your captured enemy was sacrificed, it proved your warrior's skill and strengthened your reputation. Even festivals involving child sacrifices for Tlaloc, heartbreaking to us, were framed as sending pure, unspoiled souls to dwell with the rain god, ensuring prosperity for the entire community. Art and symbolism. Aztec art is filled with imagery of sacrifice. Hearts held up to the sun serpents, drinking streams of blood, butterflies emerging from flowers, symbolic of the transformation after death. Temples themselves were designed to embody this belief system. The Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan had twin shrines, one for Huitzilopochtli, one for Tlaloc, war and rain, destruction and renewal. Two forces that kept the empire alive. Sacrifice and social order. Ritual killing also reinforced the Aztec social hierarchy. The nobility and warrior elite controlled the ceremonies, and only trained priests performed the final act. This centralized power in the hands of those closest to the gods, ensuring that religion and politics remained inseparable. It also served as a constant reminder. Survival was communal. Every farmer, merchant, soldier, and artisan depended on the gods' favor, and thus on the success of the sacrifices. Misunderstandings by the When the Spanish arrived in the early 1500s, they were horrified by the scale of the sacrifices. Chroniclers like Bernal Diaz and Hernan Cortes described piles of skulls and blood-stained altars. While their accounts were sometimes exaggerated for political purposes, they also revealed a deep cultural gulf. To the Aztecs, the Spanish refusal to honor the sun with blood was not enlightened, it was dangerously foolish. To the Spanish, the Aztec system was not pious, it was barbaric. This clash of worldviews was one of the reasons the conquest unfolded with such intensity. Each side believed the other's gods were powerless, or worse, false. Sacrifice in everyday life. It's important to remember that not all sacrifices were human. The Aztecs also offered animals, incense, jade, food, and flowers. Ordinary people often performed small-scale bloodletting, piercing an ear, tongue, or thigh, to give a personal offering without dying. In a sense, the grand human sacrifices were just the most dramatic expression of a daily truth. Life is sustained by giving life. The psychological core. Ultimately, human sacrifice in Aztec culture was a fusion of faith, necessity, and identity. It answered the biggest questions: why the sun rises, why the rains fall, why the maize grows. With a clear, tangible system, it gave every person, from emperor to commoner, a role in sustaining the universe, and it turned death, normally a thing to fear, into a sacred passage and a source of pride. The meaning. Today, looking back, we can acknowledge the brutality while also recognizing the coherence of the belief system. It was a world where life and death were in constant dialogue, where the divine was both demanding and generous, and where the human role in the cosmos was active, not passive. For the Aztecs, to live was to give, and the greatest gift one could give was oneself. When we talk about Aztec human sacrifice, we tend to focus on what happens before the blade falls, the preparation, the ritual, the climb to the temple top. But for the Aztecs themselves, that was only the middle of the story. The real payoff, the ultimate purpose, came after the heart stopped beating in their eyes. Sacrifice wasn't the end of a life, it was the beginning of a cosmic promotion. You weren't simply dying, you were ascending to a higher, holier, and more powerful role in the universe. The Aztec afterlife was not one-size-fits-all modern idea of heaven and hell. One good place and one bad place wasn't how the Aztecs saw things. In their cosmology, your afterlife destination didn't depend on whether you were good or bad. It depended entirely on how you died in battle or as a human sacrifice to the sun god. You went to the house of the sun Tonatiuh, died in childbirth. You were honored as a warrior and sent to join the sun's journey, died by drowning, lightning, or water-related illness. You went to Tlalocan, the paradise of the rain god, Tlaloc, died of old age or disease. You began the long, challenging journey to Mictlan, the underworld. In short, your death determined your cosmic career path, and dying as a sacrifice wasn't a tragedy, it was a fast-track promotion. The House of the Sun, the most prestigious posting, the ultimate reward for a sacrificial victim, was entry into Tonatiuh, the sun's radiant home in the eastern sky. The Aztecs imagined this as a glorious realm where the sun god Huitzilopochtli resided, surrounded by light, warmth, and eternal honor. Getting in was not easy, you had to die in the service of the sun. Warriors who fell in battle earned their place there, but so did sacrificial victims. The belief was clear, your blood and heart gave the sun the strength to rise each day, and in return, you got to live with him for years of solar glory. But you didn't just lounge in some celestial palace forever, you had duties. For the first 4 years after your death, you accompanied the sun on its daily journey across the sky. In the morning you marched ahead of him as he rose, singing and shouting to announce his arrival. At midday, you basked in his full power, standing in the blazing light, as proof of your service. In the evening, you escorted him down into the underworld for the night, guarding him from the forces of darkness. It was the most prestigious military service imaginable, and you were already dead, so no one could kill you again. Transformation into beauty. After 4 years, your spirit was transformed into something even more beautiful, a butterfly or hummingbird. The Aztecs loved these creatures, seeing them as living sparks of sunlight flitting through the world. Hummingbirds fed on flowers, just as the sun fed on blood, and butterflies carried the bright, fleeting essence of life itself. To see a hummingbird hovering in the air, or a butterfly drifting through a maize field, was to the Aztecs to witness a former warrior or sacrifice still visiting the mortal realm. People might pause, watch, and even speak to them, offering flowers as if greeting an honored guest. The perk of eternal youth. In Tonatiuh, you didn't age. You kept the strength and beauty you had in your prime. No sickness, no hunger, no fatigue, just eternal vitality. And unlike in the mortal world, where even the greatest warriors eventually weakened, here your power only grew. This immortality wasn't just about vanity, it symbolized your new role. You were no longer part of the fragile, decaying human world. You had become part of the cosmic engine that kept everything alive. Childbirth, as battle women's warrior honor. Interestingly, Aztec women who died in childbirth got the same afterlife perks as warriors and sacrificial victims. The reasoning was that childbirth was its own kind of battle, a fight to bring new life into the world. These women also went to the House of the Sun, and for the first 4 years, they accompanied the sun from noon to sunset, while male warriors and sacrificial victims escorted him from dawn to noon. This division mirrored the gender roles in Aztec society, but both halves were equally honored. Why sacrifice was a promotion to us. Being chosen for sacrifice sounds like the worst possible fate. To the Aztecs, it could be the best, especially if you believed in the afterlife perks. You skipped the dangerous years-long trek through Mictlan, the underworld. You avoided the risk of dying an ordinary death and losing your chance. At Tonatiuh, went directly into the company of the gods. No detours, no punishments. This belief made even captured enemies accept their fate with surprising dignity. They might fight fiercely to avoid capture, but once taken, some saw the sacrifice as a chance to die in the most honored way possible. Tlalocan, the rain god's paradise, while Tonatiuh was the elite afterlife for warriors and sacrificial victims to the sun. Another coveted destination was Talokan, the lush, eternal paradise of the rain god. Talokan you didn't get there by fighting, you got there by dying in a way associated with water, drowning, being struck by lightning, dying from certain skin diseases, or in some cases being sacrificed specifically to Talokan. Talokan was the opposite of the dry, hot sun realm. It was cool, green, fertile, overflowing with food and flowers. Here, you lived in eternal springtime, free from pain, working alongside the rain spirits to keep the world watered and alive. Children sacrificed at Tlaloc were believed to go here directly, a comforting thought for grieving families who imagined their little ones playing among flowers forever. The symbolic dichotomy of death. What's fascinating is that these afterlife perks were not just spiritual incentives, they were part of a larger symbolic economy. In the Aztec worldview, your life belonged to the gods from the start. Giving it back through sacrifice or heroic death was paying a sacred debt. The gods rewarded that payment with status, beauty, and eternal purpose. This wasn't a vague promise. The descriptions of Tonajuican and Tlalocan were vivid, almost like travel brochures for the soul. People knew what they were signing up for, or at least what they believed they were signing up for. Public recognition that lasted beyond death. One of the biggest perks wasn't just what happened in the afterlife, it was how you were remembered in the world you left behind. If you died in sacrifice, your name could be recorded in song, poetry, or temple carvings. Festivals might include reenactments of your final walk to the altar. Your family gained honor, and your story could inspire future generations. For a society that valued reputation and communal memory, this was immortality of a different kind. No fear of oblivion. Many cultures feared death because it seems like a slide into nothingness. The Aztecs feared something different, being forgotten or being sent to a dull, powerless afterlife. Sacrifice eliminated that fear. You knew exactly where you were going, who you'd be serving, and what your role would be. There was no uncertainty, no risk of becoming a nameless shade wandering in darkness. The power of belief. It's easy to be cynical and say these perks were invented to make people more willing to be sacrificed. But belief systems aren't just cynical tools. They're living structures that shape how people see themselves and their world. For the Aztecs, the afterlife rewards were as real as the temple stones under their feet. People acted on them, made decisions based on them, and even faced death with them in mind. That is the measure of their power. From the victim's perspective, imagine being a chosen sacrifice in Tenochtitlan. You've been fed well, clothed beautifully, treated with honor in the days leading up to the ceremony. You know the climb to the altar is your last walk, but you also believe it's your first step into the sun's service. The drums beat, the crowd chants, the incense swirls. You look out over the great city, the lakes, the mountains. You believe that tomorrow you'll be soaring across the sky, your heart's energy helping to bring that same sun back over the horizon. For you, it's not an ending, it's a promotion. And so, we've walked the whole path, from the unlucky moment your name got picked for sacrifice, to the feasts and fine clothes, to the dizzying climb up the temple steps, and finally, to the shimmering afterlife perks the Aztecs believed awaited you. It's tempting to wrap it all up in a neat little bow, to say, well, at least they thought they were getting something out of it. But the reality, this was still someone's life, and no matter how elaborate the ritual, how shiny the feathers, or how poetic the promises of becoming a hummingbird, it ended the same way, with a human heart in a priest's hand and blood, running down stone steps. That's where the humor we've been sprinkling in bumps into the wall of reality. Sure, we can chuckle at the idea of a cosmic promotion package, or joke about hummingbird frequent flyer miles. But beneath the punchlines lies a culture that lived and died by these beliefs. For them, the gods weren't abstract concepts, they were hungry forces that needed feeding. And people didn't just fear divine wrath, they depended on divine favor for the sunrise, the rain, and the survival of their world. It's easy for us, sitting in a time when the scariest thing about the sun is a bad sunburn, to say, wow, what a brutal system. And yes, it was brutal, but it was also logical within their worldview. If you believed the sun literally needed your blood to rise, then giving it or taking it from someone else wasn't cruelty. It was maintenance work for the universe. So maybe that's the final takeaway. Human beings can get used to almost anything if they believe it's necessary. We'll wrap it in ceremony, dress it up in beauty, tell stories about the rewards waiting afterward. We'll laugh where we can, to keep the fear at bay. And that's the strange, sobering truth behind the humor. For the Aztecs, this wasn't madness, it was duty. For us, it's history. And for the thousands who climbed those steps, it was everything. The end of a life, the start of an eternity, and the most dramatic exit interview in human history.